So today we've got Hayden Wilson on the podcast. Hayden is a fellow podcaster, business coach, author, founder of the very successful Fitness Business Summits in Australia. He's someone I've admired and followed for several years and watched his business and personal growth, which has been inspiring. I first listened to Hayden's podcast in 2014 and sort of followed him through that period and seen him grow, which has been awesome. So welcome, Hayden, to the podcast.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for the following since 2014. I love being able to produce the podcast and share some information, and glad to. It's awesome to be full circle to be able to be on this podcast and share it with yourself and the listeners.
Yeah. Awesome. What I love about your work is you lead by example, and you're someone who walks the talk. Can you just initially go back to your humble beginnings in your perhaps formative years and any pivotal moments that helped propel to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that when I first got started on my growth journey, I think that a lot of people think that it's a burning of the boats, and we hear this kind of stuff, and that one day you just wake up and everything becomes clear, and you're so driven that's just like one way just to get to your mission that people put out there. And I think that a more productive thought and how I did it was just a daily dedication to becoming more and uncovering more truths about myself. And so for me, it was about finding more of what I loved, doing more of that, finding out what I didn't like and doing less of that. And so each day, along the journey, there was some difficult times, some dark times, some fun times, some inspiring times, some amazing times where I met crazy level mentors, difficult times where I didn't want to go on, or I wanted to quit. And every now and then, what happens is like this equalizer. And sometimes when you're feeling really up, something will humble you. And when you're feeling really down, that's when I produce my best writing. It's when I produce, when I'm able to connect with different people. It's when I'm able to discover the tools within myself to be able to make mindset shifts. So I appreciate both the great times, because it pushes me to want to be able to strive for that level of, inspiring, that feeling that we all love when we're growing. But also knowing that even though it does suck when you go through those difficult, confusing, uncertain times, I've also learned to appreciate, and more than trying to remove them, I just try and navigate them and, learn to understand them a little bit more. And, while going through them, like I said, it's difficult, it's challenging, but also looking back, that's when you grow the most. Like if I look back at the darkest times or the scariest times when I've been most uncertain, looking back now when I do have certainty in elements, and it's just a constant flow of certainty and uncertainty, that's just life. But looking back now, I'm so grateful for those opportunities, because, it shows you the incredible strength that you actually have within that you just have no idea about until it's actually required and actually needed. So there's definitely been times along that journey where I've discovered that that's been really highlighted. But to answer the question, Adam, it's definitely like a daily dedication to just following your inspired path and attempting not to let anything get in the way. And as it does, deal with it, and then just continuously just try and find your way back to that, and listen to the signs pointing you towards what your truth is.
Yeah. And so obviously you said, there's a daily practice of wanting to improve, but was there a specific moment when you were younger, or where did you get that sort of hunger from? Maybe it was the early years, maybe it was when you started your career.
I had basically, I was saying this on a podcast actually earlier today, that, when I was 8 years old, my dad died from cancer. And my grandma passed away about 2 months or 6 weeks after that. So, and I was 8 years old. So even from an early age, I had it sounds strange, but I had such a connection to the realities of that we are mortal, of our mortality. And so looking back now, I mean, I feel like I didn't process it at the time. I was very young and didn't have the emotional tools to be able to grieve and all that kind of stuff. You're 8 years old, right? But looking back now to doing a lot of discovery work late last year and a lot of what I call deep work, looking back now, it's been one of the most amazing gifts because that, and I don't know, I can't tell you if that was the exact point, but looking back, it makes sense that this urgency I have for life is because I know that at any point in time, because I've seen it with my own eyes, that people can be there one day and not be there the next day. And as in like not ever come back. I find like the whole, we're going to get deep real fast here, but I find the whole concept of death, like really like interesting in that, for example, like you can take someone's life or someone might die and like they're gone like forever. Like our experience, all that we know, all our entire lives, everything that we know, like we don't know what happens before or after death. So we can't be certain, but the one thing we can be certain of is if someone's gone, like they're finished, they're gone. And so I found that knowing that was almost like this weird sort of motivation and creates like an urgency within me to do all I can with the time that I've got, because from an early age, it's like, well, people do die. So it's not, I think a lot of people, everyone's got a different situation. Just for me, it happened to be that I was very, very close to death. And I think that at 8 years old, that certainly happened. At 20, and then until 24, I was just a normal dude, man. I had never really read a book since high school at that stage. I'd never listened to a podcast, never listened to an audiobook. And now I reckon over the last, say, 4 or 5 years of like full-on journey, I would have read, listened to, and podcasts and all that kind of stuff, like all up, like over 1,000 books and thousands of hours of material, some amazing, some, looking back now, a bit of a waste of time, but all up, it's just that, it's that collaboration and that, Napoleon Hill, when I was 20, I would have been about 24, 25, seeing a video of him to completely change my life, having different sessions with mentors or meeting different mentors along the way and coaches that have just been like, wow, like that was a pivotal point. Going through, late last year, I discovered I never thought I was a spiritual person, and discovering my spirituality late last year was like, whoa, like I couldn't. It was just this totally like eye-opening moment for me, and so it's definitely been like markers along the way. But I think that the main one, I guess, would probably be that initially very young, but only realizing now. Or in the last sort of 6 months, looking back, that was probably a greater possibility of where that urgency actually came from.
Yeah, and that's awesome, because obviously you've done the work and you've got that level of self-awareness that you're able to look back and connect the dots, because I think a lot of people sort of miss that in identifying their values later in life. Obviously, those early sort of formative years have got such a big impact on who you are as a person. What were the initial people and sort of early figures that you aspired to look up to and sort of wanted to be like? Was there someone you were modeling at, say, that age when you said 24? Who was that sort of person?
When I was 24, I worked for a gym in Melbourne called W's Gym. Man, I wanted to be like Tony, who started it. I just wanted to be miniature Tony. I wanted to do the things he did. I wanted to own a gym. I saw other people that had done the same thing, and that showed me what was possible. I wanted to be like them. And what I actually did for, I would say, until I found my own values, is I just went around and I would just try and be like everyone else. And I'd try and, that's amazing. I want to just be like you, like you're amazing, and look up to these people, and awesome to provide a level of growth. But the problem is, and I wrote about this in my book, Why Wait to Be Great, is that I was climbing the ladder to success, but it was on their wall. And I realized in the last couple of years that if I want to achieve what I want to achieve, it's great to climb the ladder of success, but make sure it's leaning on my wall. And So definitely Tony. There's a guy, another mentor called Harry. I've had another mentor. Like I just found that the right mentors seem to find me at the right time. And I've had paid mentors and I've had free mentors along the way. And I pay them through my ability to take action. And I've just found that for me, it's a balance. You know, I've had some amazing paid mentors, but I've also had some incredible people that have helped share a strategy with me and share insight and a different perspective that, you know, I've just literally sent a cold email to and said, hey, can we catch up for a coffee, or a specific way that I do it. But I try and just find out what I most need to learn and then go find someone who's done it. And I found that's more effective than subordinating and thinking someone's better or worse or know something more than me, because usually it's just experience. They've just had more experience in one particular area. So I'd rather just borrow from that knowledge and then see if I can better myself through the application of their wisdom.
Yeah. You've obviously been receptive to the mentors as well. And I think that's a huge part of it, in being open. What's the best advice you've ever been given? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Oh, there's so much, but and I really I wouldn't do it justice if I just did one overall. But I would say that in the last, let's just say the last 6 months, a really amazing piece of advice that I got from Kevin Roberts, who I've interviewed a couple of times, and he was the previous CEO and chairman of Saatchi & Saatchi for 19 years and done a bunch of different stuff in a bunch of different countries, and, you know, the top of the top in 5 or 6 different companies. And he said to me, you know, the key is to find your one question. And, you know, I've done a lot of inspiring stuff that I really have enjoyed, and been able to continually just grow and just do mostly what I like for the last 2 years as I've been on the journey of, you know, self-employed business and growing my company. And he said to me, he goes, you know, once you find that one question, it all makes sense. And we were sitting there and I'm like, you know, I've been clear, but when he said this to me, it really cut through the noise. And basically I showed him a copy of my new book, because we're sitting there for about 40 minutes and we're having this session and we just couldn't seem to work out. He goes, you know, you're confused. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what my question is. And I was beating myself up, right? And then I showed him the cover for my new book. And at this stage, it was called You Are Average. And he looks at it and he looks at my phone and he's looking at it. And I let him go because, you know, his mind, you know, he's spent, you know, he's a very experienced marketer, ideas guy, just top at the top. And he's looking at my phone at the cover of the new book. And I let him go because he's got his mind's ticking over with all his ideas. And I'm like, yep, do your thing. He looks at it, hands me back the phone, and he goes, I think it's brilliant, but just change one thing. Put the word maybe in front of it. And for me, so the book went from You Are Average. He goes, change it to maybe you're average. And for me, because then the subtitle is because you don't but you don't have to be. So maybe you're average, but you don't have to be. And the whole book's, the premise behind it is it's going to help you escape average. And then he goes, now that actually then becomes your one question, because his one question that he asks people is, would you like to learn how to win in a crazy world? And so it's basically rhetorical, because who doesn't want to win in a crazy world, right? And so for me, the piece of advice that he gave me is, once you find this one question, then it becomes, do you sometimes feel average? And then, of course, everyone being human, of course, sometimes I do feel average. I can make you feel great all the time. And then from there can stem so many options, and everything builds out from this one question, because, you know, like I can have an anti-average program. I can have a 12-step, you know, retreat that people can come to. I can have a membership website helping people not be average. Like, there's so much that can stem from understanding that one question. And that was a really piece of powerful business advice that I got along my travels. And that was really just super recent. And, you know, it's just, I guess it just goes back to that thing. Like, every now and then you get like another piece of, like, I feel like it's another piece of the puzzle, man. And I never, ever have claimed to know it all. And I think that's probably like dangerous to even suggest that someone does. And I'm always wary of people that will give you all the secret success tools. I just try and every day find another piece of the puzzle, and eventually it starts to become a lot more clear. And then as I go along the journey, if I'm able to share that wisdom with anyone else who's missing the piece that I already have, then I'm grateful to be able to serve them and share what I've been able to share, or I've been able to learn. And then we all grow, and I get to help people grow just like I've been helped. And I'm able to make a living from that and see other people continue to grow their cause. And that's what gives me purpose. And so the more I can focus on that, the more I feel like I'm doing a great job in the world and inspiring and continue to live the life I live.
Yeah. Can you just speak about the that you went through from PT to do your podcast, and obviously now into the book as well?
Yeah, here's the most interesting thing that was like my biggest. If anyone's seen Brené Brown, she talks about these things called shame gremlins, and I had this shame gremlin for a long time, right? Because I had this thing called PT Profit, which was which was a blog, a podcast, and how I launched into everything that I do was basically started from this PT Profit thing, because I worked in a gym, but I was never a PT. And look, I'd done some boot camp and some off the record type training of people, and I've been around gyms for 10 years, but I was never like in the trenches PT. But I knew a lot of PTs. I knew the fitness industry. I'd run events. I was part of the Arnold Classic. Like my whole life revolved around fitness, and I knew the problems. And when I worked out that I didn't have to have been a PT, but I did have to dedicate myself to learning everything that I needed to learn. And so I didn't need to know how the mechanics of the body works in a squat, the difference between or what different the anatomies of the muscles and all this, and the nutritional principles or the nutritional intricacies of ketogenic diet versus a 5-2, or all this stuff, right? What I did need to know for my purpose was how to believe in people, how to build someone's confidence, how to run an effective business, how to continually grow your following, how to grow an impact, how to get influence. And so what I did, I made it my full-time job to learn that stuff. So then when someone needs advice in that area, they outsource that to my life. Because what happens is people come to you because they want advice, and they come to you because you're organized and you know that particular area. So when people come to you, Adam, they're outsourcing their fitness, their health, their nutrition, and their mindset, because you're organized, you've got the principles, you've got a step-by-step system to go, cool, so you're 10 kilos overweight and you want to put on 10 kilos of muscle. This is the plan. This is how we're going to do it. Over the next 24 weeks, we're going to work together. Here's what you can expect. Here's the kind of foods that we're going to be eating. And you've got this real solid plan. Before they came to you, they had no idea. But your job, 24/7, you're researching, you're learning, you're driven about it, you're living in Dubai, you're living your dream, you're living your purpose, all based around helping. You're the outsourcer of someone that wants to outsource their health and nutrition, right? And so what I learned is that I need to just have the answers, and I need to focus on being the outsourcer for someone who wants to grow as a person, as a business. And then I needed to really master that. So my journey went from getting over my ego of, I've never been a PT, to knowing everything that I need to know to help people with the problems that I most want to help with. And so then I went from working in the gym, and then I started building websites, and then I decided to put on an event. And then from the event, I basically started doing, I wanted to do more events. So I put on an event, right? And which was the first one that you came to, and how we actually connected in the very first instance, which is awesome. Thank you for coming. And it was a packed out event, right? And I sold out the tickets, 115 PTs in the room. And it was my first big success as a solo business owner. And I thought, this is amazing. But I remember having not a mental breakdown, but I had a moment 2 days before, because I'd sold out, awesome. But I realized I had an event, not a business. And so I remember calling a mentor, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got this awesome event, but 2 days after it's finished, I'm chasing again. Like, what do I do? And he goes, look, when the time comes right, the answers will be provided. Your job over the next 48 hours is just to provide the very best the very best event that you can possibly deliver. And that just completely took off 99% of the worries that I was putting on myself. I delivered an event. I did the very best job that I possibly could. And, it ran very smoothly. And then, as he said, the right answers produced themselves. And I found the next week I did a workshop with one of my friends who was speaking. From there, I decided I loved the in-person aspect of the summit. I loved the inspiration from the different speakers. I loved putting it together, putting it into a system, and coaching people who are driven. Like PTs, obviously, are very as I can tell here. Like, you're doing a podcast, you're making things happen. PTs traditionally, some of them, I mean, every industry is different, but some of them are very driven, and I love that. I've noticed personal trainers and fitness professionals and real estate agents, they're both very driven for personal growth. And so I was like, I'd love to just work more with these people. And so I built a program around those three things: inspiring information, inspiring teachers, and bringing people together in the same room, because there's a certain energy that can only happen when you do in-person stuff. And so from there, I was still very much, I would say, like an event organizer. I brought in different people. I brought in, over the 12-month period, I brought in 11 different speakers, and I spoke for 1 month. And only one of the months, because we meet every month, right? But I brought in 11 different speakers. And what I did after month 4, I realized that, some people were making some great changes, and the information they were learning was amazing, but they really weren't embracing it as much as I would have expected. I'm like, what's going on here? And I realized after 4 months, I was like, there's no glue holding this together. I mean, they come to this event, highest quality speakers of any club that I've seen, right? So we attract some really high quality speakers, but the problem was that you can share all the most amazing information, the best strategies, but if someone's not helping you get over your own mindset issues, your own bullshit that you're selling yourself, then it becomes very stagnant. It's just throwing more information at you, and there's no strategy to put that into place.
I mean, it becomes not a daily practice; it becomes a weekend, a month, or weekends that year, and that's not going to change anyone. It's obviously you've got an implementation, and that's where your business, I guess, stemmed from.
Absolutely, and then I learned, wow, I'm going to have to actually learn, because remember, I was still in the mindset of I'm an event organizer. Like, I like speaking, I like putting stuff on social media, like influencing type content, writing, that kind of stuff, but I was still very much like, I just bring in the right people in the right room. And that was an awesome way to get started, and still is an awesome business model to use, because you can get started like immediately. You just borrow other people's knowledge. But the problem was I needed to take on the identity of coaching and helping these people, and being sure enough and having the confidence within myself to go, I can provide these people with the right perspective, the right advice to help them grow in the areas that they tell me they most want to grow. And so I learned very quickly. I had to learn very quickly. I was forced to learn very quickly if I wanted to have a continually sustaining business, to become a coach and to listen to people. And I went out there and I learned different skills and different techniques, and built my tools, my tool belt of different techniques to learn how to coach someone and get the best from them. Read different books on leadership, read or listened to different mentors, joined different programs, spent a lot of education and a lot of time and money and traveling on my education and on my own growth and expansion of my own self, because you can only ever grow others to the extent you've grown yourself. And that's where it stemmed from. And now I just every day I just continually try and spend more time in the head of my customer than in my own. So I'm always just thinking, I'm so driven, and because I know that's the best place for me to play, is how can I solve problems for this client? How can I solve problems for that client? What's this current client struggling with? How can I help them get over that? And just on and on and on. And just, if you continually just become the chief problem solver of your clients, you spend so much less time with inside fear, anxiety, depression, angst, and worry, and you start to get in the mindset of service and actually helping people, and that gives you that feeling of usefulness and purposefulness, and you actually want to actually get out there and make it happen. And that's the mindset I try and achieve every day, the daily practice of just in the head of the customer.
Yeah, some great advice. What would you say to a personal trainer who's perhaps been in the industry for 5+ years, in a big box gym, relatively busy, making good money, but stuck in that old trading time for money model, and they're wanting more, they're wanting something that's going to be sustainable for long term? Where should they go first?
The first thing they should do, man, in my opinion, is learn to productize. Learn to take what you've got. Learn to take the service-based model, because service is trading your time for money. And at every point, eventually you work it down, and every exchange, you've got to exchange time for money in some form, right? But productizing is the smartest way that I've found to do it. And so you find a common goal that you think that would be valuable for people, right? And then you go, like, say for example, like, I'm helping coaches become what I call an elite coach. And I looked at if someone was an elite coach, what elements would they need? And I was actually helping, probably a more relevant example is I was helping one of my clients, and she's a PT, and she's helping people holistically become, we call it the total human experience. And I said, okay, so if someone was to have the total human experience, what elements would need to be necessary to become to have a total human experience? Well, they're going to need mindset, they're going to need their nutrition, they're going to need training, and they're going to need, breathing protocols and all the stuff that she's really driven to deliver, all the stuff she's already doing, but just in an ad hoc sort of here, there, everywhere, don't know when to do it type way. And so what we did is we go, okay, so if someone was to become a total human and have the total human experience, what's the first thing they would learn? Well, they need to be clear about their goals. Cool. So that's module 1. So now we're starting to build our modules. So module 1 is all about getting clear about what we actually want to achieve. Module 2 might be around movement, maybe a movement assessment or a movement-based practice. So then module 2 is all about educating the client on what they can do for their movement practice. And as we go along, we start to realize, okay, so what else could we do? Well, maybe a workshop, or maybe we'd love to bring our clients together once a month, or maybe we could have a growth-minded pack where we give them, a book. Like I built a book club into my club because I love books. And you start to think about all the different products that you can put into a system, because when you're trading time for money, the problem is that a lot of PTs fall into is they will charge, just say, for example, they're charging $80 an hour for a session. And so when they frame it like that, you come to the session and you pay $80, and from 7 o'clock on the dot to 8 o'clock on the dot, just say it's an hour, the time that's they're equating that to, okay, this is my service. They haven't thought about, that doesn't take into account 1 second. If you want to get paid straight up $80 for that hour, then that's fine. But you've done prep work. You might need a setup. You might need to think about their programming. They might have messaged you outside. All this needs to be accounted for, because if you haven't, but you're giving them diet advice, you're giving them a meal plan, you're giving them a program, you're giving them, a support forum where it's taking up time, all of a sudden that $80 that you think that you're charging has suddenly, if you think about it, over that week, you might communicate with that client. Let's say for a total, we'll be conservative. You might contact that client and talk with them for, let's just say, 2 hours, including the 1 hour session. There's 1 hour cumulatively doing different thinking stuff and talking to them and guiding them through. So all of a sudden your $80 an hour is turned into $40 an hour. And if you take it even further, if they took up 3 hours that week, all of a sudden you're making, $25, $30, $27.50 an hour. And then it's like, well, geez, if I continue on this path, then it's not going to be uber productive. Where you can really excel with products is it suddenly doesn't become, you just remove yourself from essentially from that equation. And so there's always going to be an element, I think, if you're into personal training, there's always an element of like the personal aspect, right? So unless you hire someone to work for you and deliver the sessions, which is totally possible. But if you enjoy still the coaching aspect, then there's going to be some touch points and some one-to-one type interactions. But that should just be one element of your coaching service. When you productize, you can build in awesome stuff, awesome educational tools to empower that client, because when you're with someone for 1 hour and you're just helping them on the gym floor and you're doing a really great job, you educate them for 1 hour and there's only so much you can do with someone in 1 hour. If you were to package up, let's just say once a month, you did a private webinar like this for your clients, and you hired someone, or you had a couple of friends that were in the industry already that had specialized knowledge in nutrition. You had specialized knowledge in someone with specialized knowledge in finance. You had someone with specialized knowledge in, let's say, confidence or dressing for success. And so you could build a program where it's like, just say we called it the Ultimate Gentleman. And you build a program where you take 5 guys and you help 5 gentlemen go from unconfident, not knowing how to dress, 10 kilos overweight, not being confident at work, giving presentations. And let's just say we called it the Ultimate Gentleman. It's a 100-day program. I'm going to train you once a week for the next 16 weeks. But what we're also going to do is we're going to take you on a total journey over the next 100 days to go from non-confident, struggling to speak up at work and being stepped all over, to the confident gentleman who knows how to speak assertively, who knows how to get what they want, who dresses for success and is confident with his shirt on or off. All of a sudden, you've painted this dream, and you're going to get a lot more buy-in from the client, because they're going to go, well, yeah, I want that. Like the other PT said, I'm just going to train with you for an hour. So all of a sudden, you're going from, I can train you for an hour, to I'm going to take you on a complete transformational journey from 0 to the Ultimate Gentleman. And all of a sudden it goes from, hey, I'm charging $80 an hour, to, cool, our programs aren't cheap. What we actually do is I take you through this whole process. There's a monthly webinar. There's one-to-one sessions. We also include this. There's also include that. There's a dinner at the end of it. It's cost $5,000, but it's going to be the best investment you ever make in yourself. Yeah. All of a sudden you've gone from, just say it was 16 sessions, 16 times $80 a session. Someone can do the maths, versus 5K. I know that the 5K is going to be more, a lot more value, but this is how you're going to separate yourself, because no one is willing to do that. Everyone wants the quick fix. Oh yeah, it's easier to sell $80 an hour, but you're screwing yourself, and you don't get the benefit. Like if you think about it, how many clients do you need at $80 an hour? Just say you want to earn, I don't know, $1,200 per week. At $80 an hour, you need X amount of clients, right? Yeah. If you were to charge $5,000 for a transformation, and the transformation took 100 days, and you did, just say you took 3 groups through per year, you really, like if you want to earn, let's say $100,000, you really only need to have between 5 and 6 of those people coming through, was 6 to 7 people coming through at each of those intervals. So if you just found, that's all you need to do is just find 21 people per year to take them through this journey, and different people stay on beyond that. It's like, that's such a more productive and larger business model that is sustainable, as opposed to always hunting for that next client.
Yeah. And when it comes to skills, what sort of skills do you think are important for a trainer, or for someone who's sort of moving into this, as you were calling it before, and you're trying to build those products? What skills and areas do people need to focus on? Should it be, getting a basic understanding of, social media, website design, whether it's podcasts or even online marketing stuff as well?
Man, the biggest tool that anyone can ever have, and it's probably the least talked about, is the literally the 2 ears that we have on our body, because your audience, or most specifically, not just your audience, but your current customers, are going to give you all the information that you currently need. And so what I do is any social media that I put up, any advice that I give, videos that I make, frameworks, systems, anything is based upon real conversations that I've had with people. And so I find that the tools I'm able to create are so much more valuable when I listen to people. So the best tool you can use is listening and finding out, like, all the social media, the website, anything external is literally should just be used as an amplifier to share what you're already saying anyway. It just happens to be that you can reach more people through the use of this technology. It should never start with the technology. It should start with what's most valuable to you.
Developing the actual skills, but I guess before you're offering that.
Absolutely. And I think that having an awareness over what your client wants most and what will provide them the most value, and then finding a way to deliver that in the most efficient, effective way possible, which from my experience has been through delivering programs and understanding and learning and giving them more of what will help them grow. That's the best tool that I've found. Like, I think a lot of people get bogged down with different social media or different time management tools, or the difference between knowing and doing and learning and all this stuff. And I think that it's literally about spending more time in the head of that customer and understanding what their needs are, and literally, man, just asking. Like, I use a feedback form with all my clients, and I get them to send feedback forms to all their clients, because all the information you need is currently sitting inside your business. And so if you just ask your clients, there's a couple of key questions, and one of those might be, what are you most pleased about with our current service? I also like to ask, what are the three best words that you use to describe our service? And it sounds like a unusual question, but you get so much social media ammo to use, because people will say, amazing, inspiring, educational, empowering. You get all these words that start to describe that you can use in your marketing. Other questions you might like to ask is, what other areas what other services or what other areas do you feel like you could grow in? And you literally put like check boxes, and you can ask, you literally get direct insight into how the customer wants to spend more money with you. So you might have things like, what else would you be interested in? Retreats, workshops, online portal, membership website, a Facebook interaction group, lunch or barbecue once a month, or whatever it might be. And you literally, they will tick the boxes telling you how they want to spend more money with you. And then I also have a non-confrontational question in there, which is basically, one thing that you would like to see improve over the next 6 months. And that just gives them an opportunity to say, I would like some more accountability, or I would like, I would love to see more group interaction, or whatever it might be from them. And you can also give them check boxes in that situation well, and suggest a few answers they might like to put in. But, once every 90 days, 60 to 90 days, you should be definitely asking your clients what else you can do for them. And the last question I love is, what is your current biggest challenge? Because so often we get caught up, and I've had a lot of different coaches over the years, both in fitness and also, for my mind and own development. And I've found that, our goals change. Our goals can change and develop and grow. And if you're the coach, sometimes you can get so caught up in, this is what they want, because that's the door that you walk them through when they first came was, hey, I want to have a six pack, I want to get abs or whatever. As they grow and develop, it might change to, I saw some powerlifting. I'm really interested in that. And over, say, a 6 to 12 week period, they might get really interested in a different goal. But if you're so focused on that original goal of getting a six pack, but they're so interested now in learning to power lift and get more powerful, and they haven't communicated that, or you haven't picked up on their communication, you're going in two different directions. And that's where you're going to get cause for.
And that comes back to you saying, listening, you've got two ears, you want to listen more than you speak. If you're listening to your clients, then you should obviously be able to, as a coach, take that on board and adapt your approach to what's effective giving. I mean, it's true in this, but also in life development as well. What are some of the bigger mistakes that you see people, perhaps even coach, are trying to make a shift in their career, but they might get stuck and sort of bogged down? What are the common mistakes that you see?
So is this for someone who's a PT that might want to level up and change and become more offer more services?
Yeah, essentially, the clients that you work with, your coaching as well, your elite coaching club, and maybe just commonalities and generalizations in terms of what you see, on social media as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be firsthand, but where do you think people waste too much time if they're trying to make an impact and service and create more sort of value for people? Where do you think they should worry less about?
Yeah, it's a super cool question, because I actually had a phone call with someone in the fitness industry a few months ago, and we're just chatting and talking. It was about the time of the new year, so about 2 months ago, and we're just talking. Hey, what do you want to do for the new year? And both very ambitious people, and his goals were all about growing a brand presence and market positioning, and what I now see, what I perceive as, certain just notice me type stuff. And I can only recognize that because 12 months ago, that was 100% me. I just wanted to get noticed. I wanted people to know my name. I wanted to put myself out there, and everyone needs to know what I'm doing. And I need to be so busy on social media that, everyone should know what I'm doing. But when he asked me about my goals, they lied more around, having a bigger impact, spreading the message that I want to share, leaving more of a mark in areas for my clients. And, like I said, I can only recognize it because that was once upon a time me. I've found that the biggest mistake people can make is trying to do things for themselves, and they get lost. Like you would see, man, Adam, you'd definitely see, like on social media, so many PTs use social media incorrectly. It is an amplifier. So either they're using it as Dear Diary and putting up all the different struggles, and you see it all the time after someone competes. They go through the cycles, feel so unstoppable, this is amazing. And then the next day they're talking about, it's all about lifestyle, and sometimes you've got to take the good with the bad, and you've got to, life can't always be so strict. And the next day they're feeling guilty, so they're back into it, meal prep, feeling on top of things. Yeah. It's an ongoing cycle, and it's like, this isn't your diary. Keep that on a private account or journal or whatever you need to do. But if you want to use social media effectively for business, you've just got to understand what your motives are. And people don't want to have a Dear Diary. People are so selfish. They want what's going to help them, and them in the most direct way. It might in some way motivate people or inspire them in different ways, but I've just found it so conflicting. It's so just like, hey, this is just you trying to work things out for yourself. And again, I've been there, so I can empathize with where people might be at and how they're using that voice. But if you want to use it for business, park that stuff. And the second mistake they make is it's just all about them. Like everything is like a selfie. Everything is like, hey, check out. This is my workout. Check out my abs, some, philosophical quote or whatever. And I think that's cool if that's your journey and that's how you pick up clients. But from what I've found, like that doesn't work. It doesn't get clients. And I think there's so many different, we'll probably transition into a social media question here, but there's so many different gurus talking about how you should do social media. But what I'd also say is social media is so new and it's changing like every day. And if anyone's out there, like I've just found there's different brands that, they might have half a million followers or whatever. And now they're teaching a course on how you can get followers. And what it's not taking into account is they were very early on when they started their presence. They got a couple of leg ups, a couple of like important influencers that shared their stuff early on or whatever it might be. And now to try and teach the fundamentals, which you can pick up on like a free blog, but if you want to charge $1,000 for a course to teach you fundamentals of this stuff, like I just don't, I think that by the time people are teaching you how to master something in technology, it's already too late for you. If you haven't got in early enough, so if someone's saying, hey, I can help you build your following, sign up for our coaching program, or make you a social media influencer, it's too late, because what helped them get there, it's not repeatable because it's changing so fast. What helped them was maybe free shout outs. They got lucky and got a couple of influencers that shared their stuff, and they literally just got the right hashtags at the right time to grow, and the algorithms were showing their stuff a lot. That's what helped them grow. Whereas if you try and replicate that, it's just not going to happen. So I've found the biggest mistake is people incorrectly, or one of the biggest mistakes, people incorrectly using social media. And the other mistake that stems all of this is they just keep on thinking about themselves. They're not thinking, how can I help solve more problems? Because if you think about the world, like the biggest services in the world, beyond fitness industry, beyond even this, like just thinking about businesses, right? If you look at Microsoft, if you look at Uber, if you look at any of Elon Musk's businesses, like if you look at Bill Gates, right, started Microsoft, there's a reason. How many computers have Microsoft Windows operating system, or how many people have a Mac for Steve Jobs, right? And it's like, there's a reason these guys are billionaires, because they've created something that a billion people want. Like Mark Zuckerberg, you look at all the billionaires, they're serving over a billion people. They've created something that's helping over a billion people. When your impact is so small that you're only thinking about yourself, all you can really impact is yourself. Getting outside yourself and thinking, how can I impact 500 people? How can I impact 1,000 people? And what I would say is, with all that stuff, it starts with one. So I think that a lot of people, they hear a motivational video by a social media influencer. I won't say any names, but they'll hear, you got to work harder, and you got to hustle, and you got to do this, and dream bigger, and all these like, buzzwords and this big dream that you need to create. And so what happens is people go out there and they think, oh man, I have to put in, I have to change the world. I have to have, I need to change 1 million lives by 2025, and all these like lofty goals that, they're so far out of reach. It's like, well, can you even, like, it starts with one. Like, how can you help change one life? Can you change one person? Can you change the next person? Can you build a system to change the next person? Then how do you create the impact? So change always starts with one person at a time. And I think that so many people get caught up with wanting to change 10,000 lives or 1 million lives, when they've got to start with one, and then 10, then 100, and then 1,000, and then they can go on. But so I would say that people just get so caught up with the sexiness of creating massive change, when really you just baby steps, man. And it's 100% impossible, 100% possible, because we've seen it happen. As I mentioned before, Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all these like huge characters, but they started with one person, they started with one customer, and so many people out there are looking to scale. They're looking to grow an amazing business, because clever marketers have told them that they can increase they can scale their business. And I was thinking about this before, when something came up on my Facebook, was talking about fixing something fast, or getting 10 strategies in 10 minutes, or whatever it was. And I was just thinking, like, adding speed to a poorly constructed process just helps you achieve a poorly constructed result faster.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, they want speed, they want scale. It's just going to help you push more crap out into the marketplace at a faster rate.
Yeah.
So
I think what you say is so true, and I see it because I've been in PT for such a long time. All my social media feed, I see either people, popping their abs out, showing us a motivational quote, or it's either online marketing, how to sell your services on social media more effectively, but they're not actually getting down and into the weeds of fixing the product, like you spoke about before, and getting something of value that can well before about learning from the people that you coach, and I absolutely love this because it sort of shows a higher level of awareness, and that the people that you are mentoring are actually teaching you at the same time, and it's sort of creating a breakthrough from not only the client but also for you. Are there any examples of breakthroughs that you've had in particular with coaching your clients?
As in from the breakthroughs that I've had or that I've been able to achieve?
Yeah, it's like just lessons that you've learnt indirectly from your business and from coaching, that necessarily you were going to help them achieve something, but in turn you actually learnt something about yourself.
Yeah. Like every conversation I have, it's I think it's such an interesting question. I put a video up the other day on my social because it's like every conversation that we have, there's two people that are listening. There's the client or prospect or whoever you're talking to, and there's also yourself. And I've just found, and you would have found this too, Adam, when in your own business, that every single conversation that you have, or every single conversation that I have, most likely, especially with clients, is a conversation that I most need to hear. And so whenever I'm giving out advice, I'm thinking, and I get the most benefit from this, when I ask myself, how am I growing from this? Where is this applicable for me? So say, for example, before, or I might have been through it, I'm able to provide some insight, right? So before, I was actually coaching, just before our call, I was coaching one of my clients, and she was going through, she's set some unrealistic expectations for herself, and then she was beating herself up that she hadn't followed through with this supposed promise. And I had to explain to her that it's all about priorities. And so she's moving house. She's just moved to a new gym. And, there's a lot of pressure as she's continually, like, she's going to do some amazing things. There's a lot and she puts all this pressure on herself, which can be healthy, as I explained, but can also be, it can also put us into this prison. And I had to explain to her that, is this really going to matter in 12 months' time? Because she was beating herself up that she wasn't going to submit her work or show me some of her work by a deadline, and she wasn't able to get a social media post up. And I had to explain to her and reset those expectations that, look, it's okay because you're moving house, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need security, you need safety beyond posting on social media. You need that stuff beyond. Like, my goal as your coach, I explained to her, was her growth, not to hold her to a deadline that is unachievable. And I know that in the long run, and I shared this piece of advice with her, which I think could be helpful for the audience as well, is so often, like, we give advice, right? Or but then for ourselves, we have a different set of rules. And so I said to her, if a client came to you and they said, look, I'm really driven over the next 365 days, I'm not going to miss a meal, I'm not going to miss a workout, I'm going to do every set, every rep to 100% exactly as you did it, no cheat meals, nothing. I'm going to do it for a year. Most likely, unless they're a robot, you would 100% say that's pretty unachievable. Let's try and aim for 90% or a 90-10 rule or an 80-20 rule or whatever it might be, right? And so so she was like, yeah, man, that's exactly right. And so I've realized that, we set up these prisons in our own mind. So as I'm saying this, I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, like, where do you do this? Where do you set up unrealistic expectations? Or this is amazing because you've been through this and now you're able to share this wisdom and sort out the thoughts in your own head into a more structured way, because I might have been through the breakthrough myself, but then to be able to share that information is a totally different process. Because learning, you've got like the occurrence, then you've got learning it for yourself, then you've got teaching it to others, which is like that final step. And that's what sharing knowledge and what I'm driven to do. So having, being able to get paid to structure the knowledge that you've picked up on, and then to be able to share it with someone, just from that phone call, I learned how to communicate a message. I learned what I should say. I learned the steps. I got to go back and think about some of the changes that I've made, the process that I used to get out of it. And now what I'm able to do from that is take this instance and go, okay, so this is the steps that I did to remove unrealistic expectations from myself. And so when you can start getting into this mindset, because everyone listening to this show is a creator. And if you want to increase your impact, you need to start to put yourself out there, right? So using that example, I might be able to use that as a chapter in a book somewhere. I might be able to make a blog post from it. I might be able to do a podcast. I'm talking about it right now. I might be able to help another client. I might be able to use that advice. I build a cheat sheet, whatever it might be. I've got all these options now that I can use to reach more people through my knowledge and through what I've learned. And so what I think a lot of PTs miss is they have these individual conversations. All the knowledge is already there. But what they're missing is the piece where they go from, okay, so how can I, and actually thinking about it, actually thinking and spending the time and caring enough to go, how do I take this idea, this concept, this thing that I've created, how do I then shift that and actually create value from it? Because the value, the impact you can have when teaching it, just say this was just me and you having a private conversation, there was no one listening. That's awesome. And I'm going to be able to impact you, and you might be or might not be able to impact people if you have that conversation, but it's going to take a lot longer. What you're doing right now through the podcast is you're getting the information directly, but as a consequence, hundreds, thousands of people are listening and they're going to get benefit from this as well. So by you initiating the podcast here, by us sharing this information, we're helping. The impact is just it's just growing more and more and more. And that's more people need to have podcasts. More people need to share what they love. More people need to, and it just comes down to courage, man. Like, how prepared are you to put yourself out there? How prepared are you to set up interviews with different people? How prepared are you to get behind the camera and share some of the knowledge, knowing that some people might not agree with you? But man, the reality is, people are always going to disagree. I think about if you ever get imposter syndrome, or I shouldn't be sharing this, even the guys at the top, there's so Lane Norton might not agree with Charles Poliquin, who might not agree with Louis Simmons, who might not agree with Dave Tate. There's no one way. There's just a way, and that's going to work for certain people. And if it fits your macros, works amazingly for some people. And intermittent fasting works well for other people, and strict, 6 meals a day, clean eating works for other people. But imagine if there was only one guy, and he was the only one that ever shared information, and he was the guy who invented, if it fits your macros, and everyone just tried to follow that. There'd be so much incompliance, and it just wouldn't work. So I'm never afraid to share my information and share my knowledge now that I've got over it, because, this is my way, and not everyone's going to agree with that, and not everyone's going to agree with the strategies that I share. But I know that I'm sharing authentically what I believe is the fastest and most effective route to get to a result that someone's told me through my system. And so I share as much as I can about helping them get to that goal. But I mean, everyone's free to use their own system, and everyone's free to share their own knowledge and to share their own approach. And that's what makes it interesting. That's what I think that everyone can learn, and everyone can shift from consumer to creator, because they can do stuff like this, exactly like we're doing right now. You can do it, whoever's listening.
Yeah. So just shifting gears a little bit, I'm just really interested to hear. You obviously built a strong network collaborated with. You've had, big names in the fitness business summits. How did you go from obviously just from the podcast, humble beginnings, but to start working with some world-class guys like Dr. John DeMartini, and just that ability to build with these big names?
I guess I learned very early on that I needed to, if I wanted to get what I wanted, I had to figure out what other people wanted first. And so, for example, with all my podcast, I teach what's called reach out. And so I teach people to how to, and we'll go through it now, right? But it's basically find out what they want, find out what's important to them, and then pitch it in a way, because we're always pitching, we're always selling, just not always with money, right? So I sell the idea, for example, my podcast, right? I sell the idea for someone to be exposed to a new audience, potentially if they're from America, an audience in Australia, young, hungry leaders, X amount of listeners. And so I've got 4 valuable things. Who doesn't want to reach a new audience? Who doesn't want to just be interviewed about stuff they love? Who doesn't want to expand into a new country? And who doesn't just, if I do everything, I set up the time, I do everything that all they need to do is just say yes, then I make the argument is just so easy for them to say yes. And I always think, what are all the barriers to resistance for them to say no to a podcast? Well, they're going to need to know what my listenership is, what type of thing I want to talk about. They want to know maybe I've supported them by buying one of their books. They want to know a little bit about me. What am I able to do for them? That's all anyone's asking. When an email comes in like that, pitching them for something, they want to go, what's in this for me? And so I make it very, very clear, because most people pitch in what's in it for me. What can I want to grow my following, so please come on my podcast. It's like, well, no, what's this going to do for me?
Yeah, well, and so comes back to what you were saying before about getting in the head of your customer, whether 100%,
man.
This is just a relationship.
It just happens to be, in this instance, the customer is whoever you want on your podcast. And so I learned what people most want. And a lot of the educators that I choose to spend time with and learn from, they're educators, right? They share the information that I most want to get. So I think, how do I get this information in the fastest, most effective way possible? And so I might buy a book, I might go to a course, I might take them out for lunch. And say, for example, with my relationship with John Demartini, it stemmed from I found his work. It's a funny journey, but I bought one program, loved it, bought a CD program, but I loved the first program so much that I didn't want to wait for the shipping. So I said, hey, I've already bought this program. I emailed them, hey, I already bought this program, but I want to buy the whole library, which is $1,000, best $1,000 I ever spent, best investment I've ever made. And so I bought $1,000, bought the whole program. But because I'd already bought it, they did it for like $700, and it was just a really easy transaction. And I was just like, man, these guys get it. Listen to that, heard him talk a lot, decided to try. I'm just like, well, you know what? Like, why not try? Why not me? Like, why can't I interview Demartini? Like, what's possible? End up getting an interview with him, which is awesome. And I'm just like, man, I've been listening to this guy like every day for the last 3 months. Now I'm going to be talking to him and ask whatever I want. Then continue to listen. Podcast that was in like March or April 2016. Listened every day, twice a day, to his programs. Same programs again and again and again for 8 months, right? Walking my dog in the morning, walking my dog at night. Same programs again and again. I could recite like most of his stuff verbatim. Then it was just before my summit, like a week before my summit, and I was online, and because he keeps on talking about this breakthrough experience, and I'm like, I got to go to this thing. He talks about breakthrough experience, and people come into him for consults, and I'm like, this breakthrough thing, but it was not in Australia. I hadn't been in Australia for 2 years, and for some reason I was at the traffic lights. I still remember where I was. I looked at it, and I saw the Australian flag, but it was the New Zealand flag, which looks similar, but I think the stars are coloured in. And I was like, oh, wow, like this looks like, it's actually New Zealand. And it was like 2 days after my summit. And I'd made some money from the summit. I had some spare cash. I really wanted to do it. I just, put on a great event. I was about to put on a great event. It was selling really well. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to reward myself and go over there and do this breakthrough experience he keeps on talking about. So I go over there, and it's funny because I went over there, and in Australia, you can bid to get an upgrade on your air flight to go to business class, right? So I bought a normal ticket, and then which was like, say, $400. And then for an extra, you can put in a bid. Normally they recommend like, $500 to $750 to go to business class. And so I just, why not? Like $200. So I put an extra $200 on there. And then so I'd get upgraded. So I'm like in business class, thinking I'm all awesome, Uber from the airport, and having a really good time, nice hotel. And then do the breakthrough program. I go to a gym. I bought some sneakers. Living the high life, right? And then I'm actually in the breakthrough program, and because he'd always kept on talking about these consults, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Like, how much does he charge? Found out his price, and I was like, 10 times more than I'd ever paid anyone for an hour worth of time. And then I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I realized it was in US dollars. So it was an extra $1,000 on top of that with Aussie dollars. And I was like, oh my God. So I had this consult. But what most people don't realize is you've got to pay to play. So I put my hand in my pocket and I step into that hotel room, and he knows I'm deadly serious about my growth. When you pay $4,000 for 1 hour of someone's time, they know you're serious. And I'm, like I said, I'm not. It wasn't like I had $1 million in the bank. I definitely did not have $1 million, but I'm that serious about growing and that serious about quality education. I knew that what I could possibly learn from this guy in an hour, which I got like 90 minutes, just because it was the perfect timing. Yeah. I knew that it would somehow benefit me in the long run.
Yeah, it's a commitment to yourself, absolutely.
100%, man. And I said, like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm in New Zealand. I've got a bit of spare extra cash. One time I might not have this cash. Right now I do, so why not? And so basically did it, had a great consult, which then built – the funny thing was I then wrote an article. I was so inspired by the whole weekend and the consult. I wrote an article and then put it on my website, shared it with John, guessed his email address, shared it with him. He got back to me in like an hour being like, Hayden, lovely article. Thanks so much for spending time with me. I'm grateful to serve you. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. I guessed his email address and got through. Like, that's cool. Then then their company or their Facebook shared my article. Then they pinned it to the top. And these are people going directly to my website to read my article. And then they even sponsored it. So like, they're just like, I was just getting, I think in the end they sent me some statistics. We reached like 250,000 people, like just through this article I wrote. And that really helped me build a base relationship with John. And then I guess maybe 6 months later, I was still listening to his programs, not every day for 2 hours a day, but probably like once a day for an hour or 45 minutes or whatever. And then basically I went to a program called Master Planning for Life. And I literally, man, I just said to myself, like, I'm gonna have breakfast with him. And so I sent him an email. I said, hey, if you've got time for breakfast, like, are you free? I've got a gift I'd like to give you and a question I'd like to ask. And he goes, Hayden, I'll be in the lounge at 7:35 tomorrow morning. You're welcome to join me. And I was just like, it's possible. Like, holy shit. Like, this is the real deal. Like, I can ask for something and I can get it. Like, it was just the same feeling I got when I did any sort of podcast reach out, anything. I was just like, it just gave me more confirmation that you can create what you want. And basically from there was able to just have breakfast with him, get him to know him, ask questions or whatever. Did the course. 6 months later, went back, did a different course. Like, I was just so hungry to learn from this guy, which is just one of the mentors and one of the learning experiences that I've had. Like, I'm very big on learning. And went back 6 months later, breakfast request again. And by this time, in the first course in Master Planning, I said I wanted to write a book. And he said, well, if you want to write a book, you should just go write a book. So I did, right? And then when I went back there, I had the manuscript and I was like, look, this is what I've been able to produce. Like, I talked about being able to write a book, and I'm really proud to, and I'm grateful to be able to show you, like, this is part of what you helped me achieve. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing. And he was like, yeah, inspired by what I've been able to create. And then I was just like, what does it look like for you to write a foreword for my book? And just straight up asked him, man. And he told me, he goes, this week I've been given 9 books to read from people, just this week. And 3 of those people have asked me to write a foreword. And so I'm like, yeah, but no one as cool as me, with like a cheeky smile. He laughs, I laugh. And then we worked out a deal, and he said, look, this is how the foreword works. And I said, cool. And, my book now has a foreword from John Demartini. It's like, just seeing what's possible, because I was implementing. I was going to courses. I was doing various things and following up on his advice and doing the work and sharing his message. And I got qualified in his method of coaching, which is the most powerful coaching methodology I know. And if you're a teacher, an educator of any types, having a student share that message and increase your impact is what you truly desire. Yeah. And from there, man, and then I've hired him to come speak. I just recently hired him to come speak to my crew. So from one event, I've spent, tens of thousands of dollars with him, but got so much more out of it. And, being able to create a relationship, a great friendship, a great mentorship. And that's just one of the many mentors that I've been able to do it. But what I would share with you, I don't share this story of any kind of in vain or anything. You can do it. Whoever's listening, you could do this. It's literally just find someone that you want to learn from, and then care enough to go, okay, so what do they want? How can I give that to them? And I didn't, it wasn't like in the first meeting I said, hey, John, can you write a foreword for my book? Like as if. But over time, I developed a relationship, and it just happened to be that the timing was right. Right place, right time, right message, right book. And he's just like, yeah, like I'm happy to help you out here. But what a lot of people don't realize is, that's from the moment I met him, or the moment I first bought one of his programs to the moment, to say a couple of weeks ago when he spoke at my event, and we had breakfast like the next day, that's an 18 or 19 month, or not even longer, like 2-year journey. So it's like, doesn't just happen. But it is possible. And that's when you follow your values and when you authentically, I don't go to those meetings, or I don't ask for anything unless it's to share and to grow and to continually develop what I know is important to the person that I want to learn from.
Yeah. I think that's a great story, and it's testament to taking action and having that sort of emotional intelligence to know when to hold and ask the questions of, will you write the forward? And I think also you showed him the dedication by obviously putting up your money. It shows your commitment to that and bettering yourself. So he's not just going to write anyone's forward, because he knows you're serious about helping people and taking action.
And that's exactly why that's the only reason why I shared that part of the story. Oh, and just to go back, I might have gone in like that, but I remember like I went business class over there and Ubers and buying all this stuff and the consult. But then I remember like halfway through, I was like, oh, probably should start being a little bit careful with my money, because if I keep spending at this rate, it's not going to happen. So I ended up getting a bus back to the airport and a bus back home after the airport. So it certainly didn't. I wasn't living the rich lifestyle for very long. But it definitely stems. If I think about it, none of that would have been possible if I didn't put my hand in my pocket and go, I'm willing to pay you $4,000 for your hour. And I don't know what the rates might be different now, but it wouldn't have happened, because the only reason it happened is because he knew I was serious about learning and growth, and it's all stemmed from there. Like, if I went to his program, I mean, you can do all the hypotheticals you want, but I guarantee you, if someone's willing to put that kind of money on the table and say, hey, look, I'm ready to rock and roll, like let's do this, they're serious. And I was, and I still am.
Yeah. Now, I'm mindful of your time. I know we've probably gone a little bit over, but I just I've got a few last questions here, and I'd just like to dig deep on some of your daily habits and routines. Just by following your social media on Instagram, I see you're very regimented. You're up early every day, and you've got writing habits and practices and journaling. Could you just explain what does a day in the life look like for you, and what do you get from those routines that you do?
So basically, I get up every morning at 4:55. And I've done different times, and I've done when I was writing my book, I did 3:50 for about 8 months. And I'd write from 4 till 6 a.m. But at the moment I've done my second book, I've done the writing for the manuscript, and then I'm just cleaning it up. So if I'm in heavy writing mode, I'll set up a very early practice, because no one can bother me. Even I've got a dog, even my dog's not awake. Like, it's just my time. But once I finish the actual writing, then I can tweak the schedule. But right now at the moment, I get up at 4:55. I put the kettle on, make a coffee, and then I'll go sit on my balcony, and it's quite warm here, and I'll basically write a daily email. daily inspiring email. I call it the daily dose. And it's basically, something that a client might have recently gone through, something that I'm going through, something that I think would be helpful to my audience. And it takes me about, I'd say between 30 minutes and 40 minutes to write the email. So I sit down, it's about 4:57, 5 o'clock when I sit down and finally load up the program and start typing. Yeah. I think what I want to share today, what's most important to how I'm going to say it, craft the message, right? But I made a commitment, and I'll see if I can, the document's just here. I made a commitment that I would, for 365 days, I would, and this is high tech here, Adam, but made a commitment that every day for 5 days a week, for the next 365 days, I would send a daily email by 5:40 a.m. And so I've just made that commitment to myself, and I'm very strict. And what's happened is, because I know if I miss a day, I want to be consistent. I've told people, I'm accountable to so many people now that you're going to have this daily hit of inspiration. I've sold it to them as you're going to have inspiration in your inbox between 5:40 when I send it and 5:46 by the time it might reach you, right? So whoever knows, and it's different for you because you're in Dubai, right? But most people, depending on what time it is, it's sent out from Australia at 5:40 a.m. And so what it does is, there's times where I don't want to get up. I'm human, right? Like, there's times where I don't want to get up, or I'm tired, where I want to sleep, stay in bed. But I know that if it's going to take me 30 minutes to craft a message, 35 minutes, there's no time for error. There's no time for me to stay in that bed, because I need to be up. I need to have the mind active. I need to push this message out, because I've told people that by 5:40, you're going to have a message in your inbox from me with inspiration for the day to help you dominate your day as you go out and live in the world. If I don't do that, I just think there's a really great question that I ask.
You're letting people down because you're holding yourself accountable to other people, and people are looking to you for inspiration. So, which is, you've leveraged yourself.
Absolutely, and I've always found that's one of the best techniques that works for me. Some people might not agree. It works for me, so I do it, and so I do that in the mornings, and then I will do some reading. So I'm reading a Tom Peters book at the moment. I usually have about 3 or 4 books on the go, depending on what mood I'm in, what I feel like learning about. I've actually kind of, over the last, say, year, been a lot more selective with the type of content that I'm learning, rather than just learning just in case. I kind of make sure, this is going to help build a chapter in my book. This is going to help build a video for my social media. This is going to help with my daily email, whatever it might be. So I'm a lot more strict with the type of information I'm learning, but I usually read for about, say, 30 minutes. And then by that time, or in between that, so after I finish the email, then I'll usually set my daily intentions, which is almost like a to-do list, but just things I want to be able to achieve during the day, how I want to feel when I'm doing them. I'll eat healthy, nutritious foods that nourish my body. I will deliver the very best coaching service possible to, this client. I'll give my best energy possible to Adam when we do a podcast tonight. And I set these intentions. And then I will go and do my reading. And by that time, it's usually time to walk my dog, take my dog for a walk, which takes about 60, 70 minutes, depending if I stop or not at the dog park with his friends. He's got more friends than me. He's very popular. And what I do is then I'll come home, and then I will usually do some form of exercise. So I'll either go straight to the gym or I'll go swimming. I've really been enjoying swimming lately. And again, I use the power of accountability of others and helping inspire others, but almost keeping myself accountable by posting a picture on social media or posting a picture on my story or whatever, because I just like that regularity, and I get inspired by people who do things every single day. So I think, well, that inspires me. I'm going to be able to choose what inspires. I'll be able to choose what I love doing and inspire other people. So I go swimming, I'll go to the gym. Then I'll usually come home. I'll record a video, because I show you my high-tech email thing the other day or before. This is my one for videos. I want to do 90 videos in 100 days. because I know the power of getting behind the camera. I think it's like 22 days in or something like that. I've missed 2 days. So very much on track. And even just that is just so much difference in presenting style and clarity of thoughts. Like writing a daily email, producing a video every day, blogging, journaling, podcasting like this, sharing information with your clients. What it's actually doing is it's like a filing system for your brain. It's helping you organize and collate the information that you most want to share and put it into a format where it's usable for others. Because there's just so much raw data up that's happening in our heads at all times. What we actually have to do is build that into information. So you've got raw data, build it into information, and then build it into something that's actually shareable, so into a teachable system. And so building it into a blog, building it into a video helps you organize into a system, right? So it's just how all this stuff is just literally helping me become a better educator and a better coach is what I'm inspired by doing. And so then at that point, I'll usually, lately, what I've been doing is then I'll go to a cafe, I'll edit some of my books. So I get it like, here's the manuscript here, and I'll basically like get it printed out, and then I'll literally just go through and make the corrections. And as you can see on this page, that was some real bad writing there because I got lots. But most of my pages look like this because this is the second draft. And so what happens is I'll go there, spend about an hour 10 making corrections, listening to music, but the same song over and over again in my head. Then I'll come home and then I'll do some client work. Can I just
find out what song you're listening to over and over?
I know, but I'd love if it was just one, but it changes every few days. And I'll share funny ones with your audience. I've had Rihanna before. I've had the song called "Sun Goes Down." I think it's Robin Schultz. I've had Linkin Park, like heaps. But this book in particular, I got inspired when I read Scar Tissue by Anthony Kiedis, and he's the lead man of Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that was probably the best book I read in 2017. And from there, I became obsessed with Red Hot Chili Peppers, and in particular, watching their live videos from live concerts, and one song in particular called Other Side. And I would say, no joke, I've listened to that song in, say, 2 months since I found them. 3 months. I would say I've listened to that song, and this is not even joking, not even an exaggeration, maybe 1,000 times, maybe, like in 3 months, right? It's just like, 4 hours at a time, just continuous. I love it. But what it does for me is just quietens everything that's happening, and just, it's almost like that's white noise. And so I'll do that, listen to the same song, and then I'll do client work. I'm building a membership website for coaches at the moment. So I'm working heavily on building that, and try and do some more production type stuff, systems, business stuff, and then because I get up quite early, so I'm up at 4:55. Usually by like 5, like right now at this very point in time, it's 10 past 10. But I love doing interviews, so it's not. So I'm still inspired. But normally, like at 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock, like I'm pretty beat. So there's not much creative work happening after 4 o'clock. That's usually when I take the dog for a second walk. Maybe I'll listen to like a conversational style podcast. I wouldn't listen to anything too heavy or an audio book unless I'm really digging it. I usually just listen to like a conversation. Maybe it's like a Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan. I really like him. And then, man, I usually have some dinner quite early, usually like 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then in the nighttime, just, it sounds kind of crazy, just start winding down. Might clean up anything that I've still got doing, but and I might do some reading about 8 o'clock. I'm usually like showered, ready for bed at about 8 o'clock. And then I just go lie down and maybe do some reading for an hour. And then by like 9 and some social media stuff. And then by about 9:30, do a gratitude practice before bed, and then wake up the next day. And that's, pretty repeatable. So most of my life is fairly routinized, but during the day, there's like my mornings I'm pretty strict about, but there's also some like some leeway in the middle of the day to maybe it's like coaching clients, or maybe it's focusing on building a system around something I like, or at the moment, like I said, like building the membership website. So staying super busy with whatever my current biggest project is.
Yeah, that sounds like a very, very busy day. But I mean, I love those habits. Like it just shows, and it's a testament to you that you've been able to achieve and make meaningful connections and coach with people, and you've got a clear message that you don't have those interruptions.
Once you set up the systems, like once the discipline's just getting them set up, but once you do it, it becomes seamless. So it's not hard for me because I've got skin in the game now, and I don't want to let people down. All of a sudden, it doesn't become as hard. Still, sometimes it sucks, but it doesn't become as hard to wake up at 4:55 in the mornings. It's not as hard to go to the gym. It's not as hard because I do it, so my brain doesn't have to make the decision anymore. It just goes, okay, so off to the gym now, or off to the pool now. All right, off you go.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing that for?
The swimming stuff?
Oh, just like the hardcore habits in terms of like just that routine schedule where you get up and do that practice.
It's been through ebbs and flows since probably 2 years ago, and been very very regimented in certain areas. Like when I was writing my book, the first book, I was like 4 to 6 a.m. Probably 6 days a week. And the only reason I didn't go on the seventh day is because the 24-hour cafe that I would go to, there'd be a lot of drunk people there on a Sunday morning. So, and you can't, like most other days, I was the only one in there. But when there's drunk people, they're very loud and it's not productive. So that's the only reason I didn't go early on the Sunday. I'd just go later. But for 8 months, that was my life. And then when I finished that book, I found myself sleeping into like, and whatever works for you. But for sleeping for me at that point in time was like 6:30, 7 o'clock. Like that was just too late for me and how I like to feel. And so I was sleeping into like 7, but then I'm like, no, I want to change this because I like the feeling of getting up early. I like the feeling of having what I feel like is the edge. I like getting up early, being productive, and no one can bother me early on. So I know that's what is most productive for me. And so that's why I choose to get up earlier which has been this new routine maybe, or the emails has only been the last, since pretty much February, but 2018. But I'd say like it's hovered around like 5 a.m. for the last few years, except when I was writing my book, which was 4. But lately and moving forward, like 5 a.m. just seems to be the most ideal time, or 4:55 seems to be the most ideal time just to be able to do what I want to do and get that feeling of the edge, but without being so crazy that, because it's a sliding scale. It's like, well, I could do 3:50 like I used to, or I could do 3:30, I could do 2:30, like I could just not sleep. Like it's eventually you got to draw that line, and I found that sustainability, if I want to do this in 5 years time, between 4 and 5 seems to be ideal for me.
Yeah. And I guess just finding what works. So as we come to the end of the interview, I've just got a couple of rapid fire questions. You can take as long as you want to answer them. First one is, what's your all-time favorite book, self-help or otherwise? Something that's shaped you?
That's so hard, man.
Could be your first book that sort of moved you into.
Yeah, I mean, like the magic of thinking big was absolutely pivotal, because it was so like the information was so simple, but it really made a shift in me and just helped me realize like you could think bigger. But I guess over the last 6 months, I've really like, man, if I look at my bookshelf, like all the books look the same, right? Because for so long I was obsessed with business books and self-help books and spiritual books, and they're all 220 pages. They're all like very similar. And I was only learning from, one style. And what I realized is I started reading autobiographies, obsessed with autobiographies. I just finished, there's a book called The Choice by Edith Eger. Awesome, amazing. She's a Holocaust survivor. Incredible, like what she's been able to achieve and how she got through that and the advice and the wisdom she shares. That was awesome. 2017's book was Scar Tissue. That was life-changing for me to read about Anthony Kiedis from Chili Peppers, seeing his journey and just drugs and sex and rock and roll and that. But so they're probably the three books that immediately come to mind. But I mean, there's so many others that we could just go into, but I wouldn't, The Alchemist was awesome. The Alchemist was probably actually pretty up there. But there's just so many. I find it hard to narrow it down to one, but let's just keep it those four.
Yeah. And same for movie. Is there a particular movie you like?
Yeah, I had four for that one, but this one I just have two. So I really like the Freedom Writers. And it's got a lady called Erin Gruhl. And you can just do a Google search for it. Super inspirational movie. I actually got to speak to Erin on my podcast. Incredible movie and based on true story and inspirational person. And Good Will Hunting. I love Good Will Hunting. I love Robin Williams. I like Matt Damon. I like Ben Affleck. Like it's like this perfect storm of just actors I enjoy. And it's basically, and I didn't watch that until 2017. I think it's been out since 1997. I didn't watch it to 2017. I'm a bit slow to the game, but that and Freedom Riders are my two favorites.
Yeah, Good Will Hunting, absolute classic, is probably up there for one of my favorite ones as well.
Yeah.
What do you have any quotes that you live your life by, or that you'd say on a daily basis?
I wouldn't say exact quotes. I mean, there's on my website, the only thing that I have at the moment, it just says inspiration through action. And I think that's a nice principle to live your life by, because it's basically just, walking your talk. But I wouldn't say I have there's no quotes that I sort of reference all the time directly. Actually, there is one that I really like, and I learned it maybe 8 weeks ago, and it's a Mark Twain quote. I do like Mark Twain, and it's basic. It says, "Worrying is like paying a debt you don't owe." And for me, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So worrying is like paying a debt you don't owe. Probably my favorite quote that I've been quoting. But other than that, there's a few that I reference in my new book. But most of the time I try and just use what's appropriate in that situation. And I'm pretty hopeless with actually like verbatim quoting. So most of my quoting is paraphrasing. But I just try and authentically share what I can.
Yeah. And if you could be known for one thing, what would it be? I know this is a tough one.
Yeah, I think action, man. Like I was thinking, I had one of my conversations and a part in Kevin Roberts' book, 64 Shots, which is a really good book to read for anyone who wants to develop their leadership skills. And inside it talks about discovering your one-word equity, which is basically if you could only use one word, and the power comes in because you have to be concise. And I discovered my word, and I'm toying up between urgent and action, because I think that just taking action upon your dream, upon anything, just the word action resonates with me. So that's probably the number one.
Yeah, cool. And what's in store for the next 12 months for you?
I really like enjoy one-to-one coaching. I like putting on inspiring smaller style events, which we do once a month with my crew. I'm loving the process of learning about how people win in business. I love to develop myself in the process. And so I think a lot of people get caught up with the idea of someone else's success. I think we touched on this earlier, but they get caught up on the idea of this is how I need things to look. And so a lot of PTs will see, let's say, for example, a PT sees someone doing really well and like, oh, I should just go and do that. And just say, for example, they want to open a gym, right? And they think, yeah, I want to have that. I want to have my own gym. What they don't realize is if they love people, if they love being around, coaching people, seeing results firsthand, being part of that educational process and seeing those breakthroughs and seeing the faces, you're going to all of a sudden realize pretty quickly that your role goes from the gym guy, and I'm going to talk about this in tomorrow's email, but you go from the gym guy to the business owner, and you have to transition from seeing all the different breakthroughs to letting go and letting someone else do it, learning how to hire, learning how to train someone so they can use your systems, learning how to operate and own a business in a physical bricks and mortar style business. Like you just go, there's such a steep learning curve that, you know, if you love coaching, then keep coaching. Find a big box gym, find how to productize your service, dominate inside that until you're ready to expand out. And I think so many people get caught up and they think that they look at other people and they think, oh no, but I have to be like that and I have to do this. And I just learned from my own self, like that's not like whatever someone else wants isn't what I want. What do I want? And I got very, very clear about what success looked like for me. And then I looked at what would it take to get there. They're the only two questions you need to know. What does success look like? And what am I prepared to do to get there? And the more that you can focus on defining those two things, the easier it becomes. Because all of a sudden, you're not trying to do 10,000 different things. You're not swayed every time you see someone that you think is successful because they might have what you want, right? So then you think, oh, the way to get that is, you know, I must have to have an online business. Or then you see someone kicking ass with a gym chain. Oh, that's what I need to do that. Then you see someone dominating inside of a fitness first that might have 3 trainers underneath them. Oh, I need to go do that. Until you work out what you truly want, how you want to do things. If you want to have your own business and your own bricks and mortar type gym, awesome. Let's go out there and let's help you achieve that. But if you love coaching people, if you love being one-to-one, or if you love speaking, like let's work out a system where you can do more of that. And I think that just defining that takes away 50% of the worries. Another 50% goes away as you build the skills to help implement that. So for the next 12 months, to answer the question more directly, the next 12 months for me is continually refining, answering the question of basically the question that people are asking is, or I ask is, you know, do you feel average sometimes? And, you know, would you like to feel great all the time? And so my whole, product suite is based around helping people feel better and feel less average. So they're called anti-average. So if I want to help people escape average, I need to build products and build systems and build everything around answering that question. And so for me, I've got a membership site in the works, which is going to be absolutely amazing, working on it now. Top level. I'm very big on the user experience, which I think a lot of people forget about. They build a dream, but it's not, they forget to center that back around the needs of the client. And I'm very focused, as you might have told on this call, very focused around the client. And I realized that that's where I'm one of the things that I'm better at is bringing in, systemizing the world's best information into a system for people. I love the in-person stuff, but I love keeping it to an intimate group because, you know, I could go out there and I could 100% learn the systems to grow X people inside of a mastermind and have 10 groups around Australia. I thought about doing this. I thought about, because the magic of thinking big, I thought about what does it look like if I have 50 clubs around the world with 10 members or 20 members each? What does that look like if I go after that over the next 5 years? But for me, that would take me away from my current goal. I don't know if that could be my goal in 2 years' time. I don't know. But right now, striving for that takes me so far away from what I actually want to achieve that it's more productive for me to go, how do I get the very best results for the current members in my crew and continually systemize, refine, and achieve fulfillment in that? Because fulfillment for me is coaching a small select group of people, sharing amazing world-class speakers with other people, but also having the time to write books, having the time to take my dog for a walk. Like if I have 50 clubs around the world, in France, in USA, in London, 3 in Australia, like all these different places, I can't have a dog. I'm going to have hardly any time to write books. I'm not going to have much time to read. So for my lifestyle where I'm currently at, I want to be able to have amazing delivery of top high-level programs for my clients, an amazing online resource to help the people that don't need that one-to-one type attention, and then productize that and build that and then help people. So I really only want to do 2 things three things, because I'm going to run retreats as well, right? So it's run retreats where I get to speak and teach and do all the stuff I love, have a membership website that I just continually am putting systems inside, and then teach the people that I love to teach. And I'm actually made it, this is something that I think a lot of people will get value from, in that I made it very simple on myself for where do I best play? What do I want to do? And I basically stemmed it down. And this is a really good framework that someone might like to use, because it helps you get clear in your own head and then helps others as well. And it's basically, I work with people I love in businesses I can add value to for causes that we're passionate about. And so for me, it makes it so clear. The decision point is, okay, do I like this person? Would I take them for coffee? Would I hang out with them? Would I go traveling with them? Would I spend 3 nights, or would I would I sit next to them on an airplane? If the answer is yes, then cool. Can I add value to their business? Well, I've got to ask, and I've got to find out, what are they struggling with, and can I actually deliver on my promises? And then the third thing is, what are they doing? What's the impact they're trying to have? And if I don't answer yes and have clarity over those 3 questions, then how am I going to help that person? And the same goes for any PT listening, is what kind of clients do you want to work with? Would you actually hang out with these people? Can you add value to their fitness, to their life, and to their overall health and well-being? And what is the bigger game that you actually want to play with these people? And are they thinking at the level that you want to think at? And when you shape it like that, and yours might be different, but that's a good framework that you might like to use, because when I say mine, that I work with people I love in businesses I can add value to for causes that we're passionate about. It's so clear who I can help and who I cannot help. If you don't have those 3 things, there's another trainer down the road that will help you get 24 leads in 24 hours that will destroy your business. Go to them. But if you want someone that's in it for the long haul, that wants to create an impact, then we can talk. And the same thing goes for in your business, or whoever's listening's business, is if you want to work with people you love, building around parts and share your message in the way that you do things, then tell them that's what you work on. Because if you don't tell them, then how are they ever going to know? How are they ever going to pitch your service to someone else? And the more clear you can get on just those 3 things, work out what you want to do, who you want to work with, and what's the impact of that. Work out those 3 things, and then share that, practice it. That particular framework and sentence didn't just happen. I thought about it. I thought of the 3 different elements. I practiced saying it. I memorized it, because what I realized was when I sat down with Kevin Roberts once, he had a similar approach, but he has a different pitch. But he was very deliberate, and he said it to me on a podcast once and then in person once, and it was the same. And so I worked out, wow, this is so deliberate. It's not just a memory or whatever I feel like pitching today. It's deliberate. He's thought about it, very methodical. This is what I do. This is how I can help you. This is why I do it. And so I learned from that and thought, okay, so I have to do the same thing. So that brings us here. And that's the next 12 months in the longest answer ever. But I've really enjoyed talking, man. Thanks for the questions and allowing me to share my voice. And great to see you dominating and kicking ass and sharing your message and sharing your truth and spreading the good word, man. It's inspiring to see your growth, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and the stories we've gotten, and that last answer was worth the podcast in itself.
Oh, cool. I'm glad.
Finally, where can people get in contact with you and find out what you're doing? What are the best ways to get in contact?
Man, the best way is just at Hayden Wilson, so Hayden, wilson.com.au. You can sign up for what I call the daily dose of inspiration. It's just a short email I send out each day by 5:40 a.m. if you're in Australia, as we talked about. Man, you'll find all the information on that website or in the daily emails where I just talk about leadership lessons, things I've learned, how you can best bring your optimal self to the surface of the world, share your message, and that's the best way to get in contact and see what I'm all about.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Hayden. It's been fantastic.
Man, thanks so much for allowing me to share my message, and I look forward to speaking very soon.